tripod in there. She came out with a tripod. I'll get it back here.
As my bishop said, I'm going to have to pour a quarter to a plate. Okay, I want to come from Psalms. Psalm 75. In honor to my Lord and Savior Jesus Christ, to my bishop, to my pastor, and you, my brothers and sisters in Christ. Psalm 75, the 6th and the 7th verse says, "For promotion cometh neither from the east, nor from the west, nor from the south. But God is the judge. He putteth down one and setteth up another."
That's right.
And my thought is the promotion interview.
Come on now.
Yeah, I thought about promotion as exaltation. And when God sets one up and puts one down, he's exalting one and taking another down. And he's telling, the writer of the psalm is saying that you can't look to the east, west, or the south for any of your elevation. You can't look for exaltation basically from man. Because exaltation comes from the Lord. If we remain humble, the Lord will exalt us in due season. And he's saying that you can't look to the east because back in those days, the nations that lived to the east of them were worshiping the stars and astrology and looking to the stars for their answers and worshiping the sun god.
Go ahead.
Those from the west were looking for wisdom and wealth and strength to get further, and for their armies to take them further. Those at the south, in the desert areas, they were looking for their riches and their wealth to make them, to promote them and exalt them. But we find that throughout the Bible there are so many men and women of God who were exalted by the Lord. And they knew that the Lord was their source. Yeah. There was no one else that could do for them what the things that had to be done. And I began to look at some of the characters in the Bible, and I think about how I would have done if I had been interviewing them. And I thought about what Elder Spruill was saying about being prepared. We know when we go to apply for a job, we're prepared. You have to look up the information, first of all, to apply for the job. Then you want to do a little background on the company and find out a little something before you go in and, pray that they call you for an interview. And when you go into the interview, as much as you try to be prepared, they come up with a couple of questions, those behavior questions that make you think about yourself. And so I think about the two things. What are your strengths? And then they come back and jab you with, what are your weaknesses? They want you to tell them, what is your weakness? So we know already up front what it is that you do. What is it about you that we might need to work on? So I think about, some of the characters in the Bible with Joseph. What are your weaknesses? And I look at it in the spiritual standpoint. Our weaknesses, those are our trials that we go through. These tribulations that we have, these tests that we have to go through in this life. But when I look at, okay, Joseph, what was your weaknesses? Well, I shared my dream, and I was a little haughty with my brothers. And, what are your strengths? Well, I went through. I spent 2 years in a prison. I spent time in a pit. I was forgotten about. I was lied on. But yet my strength was from the Lord. He was the one that was going to give me promotion when he was ready to promote me. When he got the things out of me that he needed to get out of me through these tests and trials. And I think about Daniel. Daniel was taken off during a time when the children of Israel were going into captivity. That's right. And, okay, what are your weaknesses? We spent 70 years in captivity. Come on. But yet, even in a place that was foreign to us, we still prayed. We still refused to bow down and follow some of the things that the king was saying. We refused to eat, certain foods. We got put in fiery furnaces. And, those are the things that we went through. Yeah. But when we went through those things, we didn't realize we were being prepared to give the king an explanation to a dream. A dream that he had that he couldn't even remember. And he had all these people around him, these so-called prophets, and they were soothsayers, and what does the bishop say, tea leaf readers, and palmistry, they're doing all of this other stuff, but they couldn't tell him the dream. So he said, gather up all of them, we're going to kill them all. And then Daniel, well, I don't mind being killed because I know who I serve. I know who's got me on this interview. He said, I don't mind being, killed for, what are we being killed about? So they told him, he said, well, you give me time. It's not going to come from me, it's going to come from the Lord. That's my source right there. I'm going to rely on the Lord. And I just believe he's going to tell me what this dream is about. So he gave him some time. They went into fasting and prayer, and that's our preparation. That is what we need in order to be prepared for these tests and trials that come our way. We got to hear this word. We got to stay in prayer. We have to fast and seek the Lord for direction and guidance. And he gave him the answer to those dreams. And he came and told that king, that ungodly king, what the Lord said that dream was. And sure enough, there was elevation that came in that. And even though he was spent that 7 years in captivity, he was exalted because the Lord allowed him to be exalted. Not because the king did, because the Lord. The Lord is the one that turns the king's heart. The Lord is the one that exalts those and takes those down. And even now in the time that we live in, we are writing our own epistles right now. We're doing our own interviews right now. So dust off your resumes. Start looking at the company that you work for. Get this word. Pray and fast so that you'll be prepared to answer those questions when they come and say, what's your strengths and what are your weaknesses? I went through this, I went through that, I went through these 7 years of poverty, I went through this 7 years of trial, I went through 3 years when I couldn't find a job, I went through when they was about to take my house and foreclose. I went through the time when my daughter ran away from home and I didn't know where she was. I didn't know if she was living or if she was dead. But the Lord is the one who came and told me where she wanted to be. She's all right. The police couldn't do nothing. But the Lord is the one that gave me the comfort and told me she was where she wanted to be. Where I knew in that she was alive. And the Lord was going to take me through that. And yes, he did take me through it. So I can look back now and I can say, Lord, it was then when I was weak that I was strong because I relied upon you. And it's up to the Lord to exalt us. We're not looking to man. We looking to the Lord. So be prepared for this promotion interview, people. In Jesus' name.
Show that word.